Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining our webinar. Today, we will talk about validation rules from PMDA. What does it mean for you and how Pinnacle 21 can help? Let me do a short introduction of myself. I'm co-founder of CDISC, Pinnacle 21, and have been working as a subject matter expert for several PMDA projects, including Jumpstart, CoreDF, and eData. My passion is to help users with preparation of high-quality study data for regulatory submissions. Anytime during this presentation, you can submit your questions using this icon on the left side of your application window. We will answer as many of your questions we can at the end of this presentation. All others will be addressed in Q&A page posted on our website, in addition to the webinar slides and recording. Okay, as you know, submitting study data to PMDA is optional now during so-called transitional period. However, it will be required after April 1st, 2020. In this webinar, we will provide you just very high-level overview of data submission process. For details, please refer to guidance documents posted on PMDA website. In addition, I would recommend a page of useful links on Pinnacle 21 website, where you can find documents and presentations about study data submissions to PMDA, FDA, as well as a good validation practice and standards implementation. The second link on this slide represents an English version of PMDA website dedicated to new drug review and electronic data. If you scroll down this page, you can find PMDA documentation like data standards catalog and study data validation rules. I highly recommend you reading PMDA document where they answering to frequently asked questions by the industry about study data submission. This document covers a lot of practical topics and provides details. Unfortunately, English version of PMDA website is quite limited compared to its Japanese version. Now, if you cannot read it like myself, you can use Google Translator. Of course, it's not accurate. However, it gives you general understanding of what it's about. For example, this page includes additional information about validation software utilized by PMDA. To help you with introduction to PMDA submission process, we collected some useful links on Pinnacle 21 website. Here you can find references to PMDA guidance documents and most recent presentations from PMDA. Also, there are links to presentations about the industry experience with PMDA data submissions. We try to update this page frequently to ensure that you will be up to date. For example, here is a slide of recent updates on PMDA website presented by Hiromi Sugano at Pharmaceutical Tokyo a month ago. As you can see, most PMDA documents were updated at the beginning of this year, while validation rules were updated in September. Also, PMDA updated data standards catalog a week after Hiromi-san presentation. So please watch PMDA website for new version of documents to be up to date. If you have experience with submitting your study data to American agency, FDA, please be aware that this process is quite different for PMDA. For example, submission of study data is separate from submission of documents. Usually it's about a month before the final submission of new drug application. Submission process includes series of PMDA consultation meetings. Some of them, so-called data format meetings, are dedicated to CDISC conformance and validation, including reconciliation of data validation results. After initial submission of your study data, PMDA performs independent validation using Pinnacle 21 Enterprise and compares their results with results reported by sponsor, with focus on reject and error issues. Any inconsistencies like missing or extra issues require investigations and may delay submission process. It's very important to ensure that correct version of validator is utilized. Validator was correctly configured. Execution of validation was done as expected. Also, all results, including false positive messages, must be reported and explained. PMDA validation rules are not equal. PMDA has a different severity for their rules, which expect different actions with reported validation issues. All reject issues must be fixed. If these rules are violated, it will cause the review to be suspended until correction have been made. All error issues must be fixed or explained. Otherwise, the review will be suspended similar. For all reported errors, you need to explain why an issue exists and why issue was not fixed. PMDA will perform reconciliation of sponsor reported data validation results with their own results. Warning issues are not required to be reported to PMDA at this point. Today, there are two versions of PMDA validation rules. Version 1.0 was released 4 years ago and should be used for all submissions before April 1st, 2020. This version has additional 1-year optional so-called grace period, so it may be used for submissions until April 1st, 2021. Version 2.0 of PMDA validation rules was published in September. These rules can be used for submissions starting April 1st, 2020. As you can see, there is 1-year overlap when both versions of PMDA rules may be used for your submission. Please note that you cannot mix them within the same submission using one version for some studies and another version for other studies. PMDA published their study data validation rules in Excel format with common columns like rule ID, which is the same as Pinnacle 21 rule ID, message, description, assigned data sets, PMDA severity, applicable versions of the standard, and PMDA notes. Here's a first page of the document with change history information. There are 3 additional tabs for each data standard: SDTM, ADAM, and Define.xml file. Please keep your attention to PMDA notes column. For example, the first rule, CT 2001, is about non-standard terms in non-extensible control terminology. This is PMDA reject rule. However, in notes column, PMDA explains that CT 2001 is reject issue only for some SDTM variables. For all other variables, CT 2001 issue is considered as an error. To help our Japanese users with their submissions of study data to PMDA, we have recently opened a new Pinnacle 21 office in Tokyo, managed by Chikakis Nakao. Know that in a week, Chikaki-san will do this presentation for our Japanese users. So please share this information with your colleagues in Japan. In terms of software support, Pinnacle 21 provides executable version of PMDA rules. Version 1.0 is covered by Pinnacle 21 Enterprise, either version 3.05 or Engine 15.11.6, available in version 4.0 or above. Similar, it is covered by Pinnacle 21 Community 2.1.3 or Engine 15.11.6, available in version 3.0 or above. When selecting engine in tools, please look for PMDA Legacy 15.11.6. Version 2.0 of PMDA Validation Rules is covered by Pinnacle 21 Engine 18.10.3, available in both Enterprise 4.0 or above or Community 3.0 or above. And similar, you need to select engine PMDA 18.10.3. For your convenience, we created HTML version of PMDA rules available on Pinnacle 21 website. There are separate tabs for each standard, agency, and version you can find on the top. Also, there is a tab All, which is presented here, with combined rules from PMDA and 2 versions of rules from FDA, PMDA. You can also compare them here. Please watch for notes icon in the right column. If you click on this icon, it will provide you additional information as PMDA notes for the rule you have already seen in PMDA Excel document. Please be aware that it may be more than one rule version of this. It may be more than one version of the same rule. For example, rule SD005 is represented by 2 separate rows. By comparing them, you can see that a new version of this rule is enhanced to handle medical device data as well. So, what is new in PMDA rules version 2.0? We have new rules, modified algorithm of existing rules, and changes in rule assignments. Luckily, there are no changes in severity of PMDA rules. There are also no changes in version of supported standards. Today, PMDA data standards catalog still includes SDTM implementation guide 3.1.2, 3.1.3, and 3.2. The only supported version of ADAM implementation guide is 1.0. Define.xml standard is represented by versions of 1.0 and 2.0. Here is a summary of rules changes. For example, we have 115 new validation rules for SDTM standard. 4 rules were removed. Algorithms were modified for 38 existing rules. 76 rules were extended to other domains. Assignments of 4 rules were removed from some non-applicable domains. There is also introduced support for medical device data. Similar for ADAM and Define.xml standard. There are 15 new rules for ADAM and 33 new rules for Define.xml file. There is a new support for validation of so-called ADAM other datasets. ADAM other is considered as any analysis dataset which name starts with prefix AD, and it is not ADSL, BDS, or ADE dataset. A basic validation for common rules was introduced for these datasets, like basic ADAM control terminology or data consistency rules. Please note that now occurrence data sets are recognized and validated as ADAM other. In previous version of validation rules, occurrence data sets were incorrectly validated as basic data structure. Here are examples of new rules. Validation of value level metadata in Define.xml file versus data sets is added. There are many new rules for validation of information in trial summary domain. There are many new SDTM rules from CDISC team. Majority of new Define.xml rules are about validation of analysis results metadata. There are also many bug fixes and enhancement of existing rules. For example, as you know, some Adam variables are defined using a placeholder which represents.
Just recorded.
In old version, validation rules were implemented using a placeholder which represents any symbol instead. Such approach resulted in many false positive validation messages, which are greatly reduced now after by fixing this bug. Another example is PMDA reject rule about subjects which are not present in demographics domain. The algorithm of the rule was tuned to cover cases when the same subject is enrolled on multiple sites. There are 9 PMDA reject rules for SDTM data, 13 rules for Adam, and 14 rules for Define.xml. You can use filter in PMDA Excel document or Pinnacle 21 web page to see all reject rules and related details. Please remember that you need to look to PMDA notes for additional details about reject rules. We have discussed already CT 2001 rule. There are similar exceptions for PMDA in PMDA notes for rule CT 2004 and SD 002. There is one new reject rule introduced for Adam validation. It's about a valid SAS export format of dataset. Note that some reject rules were expanded to new datasets. For example, AD 005 is a reject rule about control terminology for flag variables. It used to be assigned only to ADSL dataset. However, any ADSL variables may be used in all other Adam datasets. So therefore, this AD 005 rule assignment was expanded to all Adam datasets. Similar about rule AD 0033. Variable which are ended as using suffix RFL may be populated only with a single term Y. Assignment of this rule was expanded from a basic data structure domains datasets to Adam other datasets. I hope that you remember that in new version of PMDA validation, Adam other covers occurrence datasets. Therefore, if you have some incorrectly implemented custom variables ENRFL as enrollment flag with values Y and N, the validator considers it as a record level flag variable and will report a reject issue. There is also one new reject rule for validation of Define.xml standard, complaining about missing Define.xml file. There are 160 new rules for all standards. There are 47 new error rules for SDTM, 12 for Adam, and 18 for Define.xml standard. They represent all types of validation, like support for new domains, data quality, new rules from CDISC team, data traceability, and standard compliance. Here you can see some examples of these rules. Here is probably the most important slide of this presentation. If you would remember the only things from this webinar, it should be an answer to this question. What validation engine should I use? So it depends on the date of your submission to PMDA. Before April 1st, 2020, you must use version 1.0. Starting April 1st, 2020, you may use new version 2.0. And version 1.0 is still optional for another year. So one more time. Before April 1st, 2020, version 1.0. From April 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021, either version 1.0 or 2.0. Starting April 1st, 2021, only version 2.0. Here is some short guidance for Pinnacle 21 community users. Please use engine 18.10.3 or community version 3.0 or above for PMDA Validation Rules version 2.0. Community 3 Plus also supports previous version of PMDA rules by engine PMDA Legacy 15.11.6. You're responsible for setup of MedDRA files, which cannot be distributed in community version due to MedDRA license limitation. We recommend you to stay online with your Pinnacle ID during validation to ensure that you're up to date. Look for potential problems in validation process on validation summary page of your report. And when you do validation of ADAM datasets, do not forget to add 3 SDTM domains for data traceability checks. Those domains are demographics, exposure, and adverse events. As a summary, I would like to remind you that new PMDA validation rules should be used for submissions after April 1st, 2020. Pinnacle 21 engine 18.10.3 implements these new PMDA rules, and correct execution of validation is critical. So now it's time for your questions. My colleagues helped me to organize submitted questions into related blocks. We'll provide answers to all of them on our web page soon. So there are many questions about availability of slides for this webinar. Hi, will there be a recording or can I get the slides? Could you please share the slide deck presented today? Thank you. Sure. Slides and recording of this webinar, as well as our completed Q&A, will be available on our blog. Also, we will notify you with in-app notification in both community and enterprise about availability of this material. The second question is where I can download Pinnacle 21 community validator with new PMDA rules. Okay, so actually you do not need to do anything extra if you already use Pinnacle Community 3.0 or above and stay online with your Pinnacle ID during validation. When we add a new validation engine, it's automatically became available to all users. You will find new engine in your drop-down box. Files will be automatically downloaded to your computer during your first validation with new engine. So it may take more time for your first validation using a new engine. If you don't use Pinnacle ID, work offline or still utilize old community version 2.1.3, you need to download a new version of community, which is 3.0.2, available on Pinnacle 21 download web page. The installation package includes engine for both versions of PMDA validation rules. The next question is, we downloaded community 3.02 recently, but do not see engine 18.10.3. What could be the reason? Installation package was updated with new PMDA engine just recently. So please re-upload it again or stay online with Pinnacle ID to be up to date. Okay, next question. Where I can download Pinnacle 21 Enterprise? You cannot download Pinnacle 21 Enterprise version. It's a hosted solution. But for example, it's similar. You cannot download Amazon or Google on your desktop. If you're interested in more details, please visit our Pinnacle 21 website to request a demo. Can you speak to enterprise version requirements from PMDA? For example, they mentioned version 4.02, but current version is 4.11 and cannot be back version. Okay. The major reason why Pinnacle introduced a concept of engine is that now validation process is independent from application itself. So starting Enterprise 4.0, a version of engine is responsible for validation results. New version of application adds new functionality like issue management. Validation results produced by the same engine will be the same. Next question. What is the difference in PMDA validation engine between community 2.1.3 and 2.2? My understanding from recent discussion with a rep from Pinnacle 21 is that they basically the same. Engine in 2.1.3 is actually engine 15.11.0 and 2.2 is 15.11.6, with a difference between the two only being bug fixes. Can you please clarify? Okay, so community 2.2.0 is not PMDA compliant or relevant to PMDA at all. For example, there are additional rules in community 2.2.0 and some rules are different. So we cannot use community 2.2.0 for PMDA submissions. Community 2.1.3 actually utilize engine 15.11.5. So the only difference between that engine and 15.11.6 is some kind of a bug fix related to Java upgrade. So these two versions produce the same results. Okay, next question. There are several choices of validation engine within enterprise version. Is there a choice that will do both latest FDA and latest PMDA? Okay, so today in enterprise you can find 4 engines: FDA, PMDA, PMDA Legacy, and P21. P21 engine represents latest versions of all rules from FDA, PMDA, and additional rules to validate sponsor-specific standards. When using this P21 engine, please be aware that the latest version of some rules may be different from PMDA version due to more fast pacing of rule development for FDA. The next question is how I can download validation configuration files for new PMDA rules. As I said before, you do not need to download validation configurations when you are still online with Pinnacle ID. Also, you cannot download only configuration files themselves. You need to get a validation engine package. So another option is to download recent community 3.02 installation package. Okay, here's a very good question. How I can get Pinnacle ID? When you download and try to install Community 3.0 or above for the first time, you will be prompted to create your Pinnacle ID. If for some reason you skip this step, you can go to Help, then Preference, and set up your Pinnacle ID anytime. Next question. You mentioned that reject rules are limited to certain domains and variables. Does the Pinnacle 21 enterprise implementation of them reflects this already? Yes, it was implemented this way from the beginning in both enterprise and community version. Okay, does PMDA accept ADAM implementation guide 1.1? We have recently submitted application to FDA and start preparing submission of the same draft to PMDA. Can we use existing analysis data sets in ADAM IG 1.1 format? No, ADAM implementation guide 1.1 is not included in PMDA data standards catalog as supported standard. There are also no PMDA validation rules for ADAM IG 1.1. Formally, it means that you cannot use ADAM IG 1.1 for PMDA submissions now. However, I heard about some trick from one sponsor. They prepare PMDA submission using ADAM IG 1.1 to file the same almost the same data sets to PMDA. They claimed that it's ADAM IG 1.0. Of course, in this case, validation generates a lot of additional compliance issues. Luckily for sponsor, none of them reject issues. So sponsor explain on errors and submit existing data sets with minimal modifications like adjusting variable labels to be ADAM 1.1 compliant. If you think to use this approach, please ensure to communicate clearly about your plan with PMDA during the consultation meetings and get PMDA approval for your plan. And also do not forget to modify your Define.xml file with a reference to ADAM IG 1.0 instead of 1.1. How often will PMDA update validation rules? We do not know. The previous version of validation rules was released 4 years ago. PMDA performs a rigorous process of rules review and testing before publishing them to the industry. However, we expect some more frequent update of validation rules in the future, especially by adding support for new version of the standards. So the next related question is when when PMDA will start accepting new version of the standards like SDTM IG 3.3, ADAM IG 1.1 and 1.2 and Define.xml 2.1. We know that PMDA are working on validation rules for ADAM IG 1.1, so we expect them to be published soon. However, we are not aware about any particular dates for this. Also, we are not aware about PMDA plans about new SDTM 3.3, ADAM IG 1.2, or Define.xml 1.2. And keep in mind that SDTM 3.3 and ADAM IG 1.2 rules are still not published by CDISC team. Therefore, I do not expect any updates from PMDA in the next months as well. The next question is, did PMDA remove conformance guide? It used to be there. PMDA redesigned their website and some information was moved to other pages. You can look to useful links page on Pinnacle 21 website for updated links. Next, several questions about submission process. We plan our submission to PMDA in March 2020. What version of the rules should we use? So formally, in March 2020, the only acceptable version of PMDA validation rules is version 1.0. So if you are confident about not missing your planned submission date, you must use version 1.0. Starting April 1st, you can use either version for your submission. Similar question. Study start date is before April 2020, and data will be submitted after April 2020. Then which version is applicable? Study start date is not applicable for PMDA submission. It's not relevant to PMDA submission. Everything is based on date of your submission. So after April 1st, you can use a PMDA Validation Rules version 2.0. Also version 1.0 is still optional until March 31st, 2021. Okay, so do you have any recommendations on preparing one data package for both PMDA and FDA? And similar question, can we submit the same CDISC package to PMDA that was already submitted to FDA, assuming there are no rejects in the validation? It's a complicated question. Formally, you cannot have one data package which would be good for both agencies. FDA and PMDA have different requirements. For example, FDA prefers conventional units. PMDA requests SI units. PMDA requests additional Japanese data sets. Scope of analysis data sets is different for PMDA and FDA. So for more details, please look at useful links page on our web page, so you can find some, links with presentations from the industry on their experience, how they try, and some recommendation. Next question: are there any file name difference between FDA and PMDA dataset package? For example, acrf.pdf versus blank crf.pdf. Expected file names for annotated CRFs are the same for both PMDA and FDA. It should be acrf.pdf in lowercase. There are also some differences. For example, a file name for SDTM Reviewers Guide document should be csdrg.pdf for FDA, but study-data-reviewers-guide.pdf for PMDA submission. So please refer to PMDA Technical Conformance Guide for details. Next question. Hello, warning type issues will not necessarily require an explanation, but do we still need to include them in the reviewer's guide under section 4.1 conformance inputs? Thank you. You do not need to report validation warnings issues for PMDA. Severity error. You stated that if violated without any prior explanation, would suspend review. Does prior explanation mean explained in SDRG, RDRG, accompanying the data transfer, or explained in correspondence with PMDA prior to submission of new data? Thank you for clarifying. You need to explain error issues in the reviewer's guide and submit it with your data sets. Remember that you submit your study data before the final submission of your new drug application, and we'll discuss your results with PMDA during the data consultation meetings, which is still before your final NDA submission. Okay, Other question, any news when SDTM IG 3.3 will be supported? I'm not sure if it's a question to Pinnacle or to PMDA. So Pinnacle 21 implemented a draft version of validation for SDTM IG 3.3, and this validation is available in enterprise since April. However, the DISC team is still working on official rules for SDTM IG 3.3, and now they are under public review process. So also, SDTM IG 3.3 is not supported by FDA and PMDA data standards catalog. I expect that CDISC will publish the rules later the next year, while FDA may adopt the standard quickly. I would expect additional time for PMDA adoption due to the rigorous review and testing process. The next question. Sometimes sponsor may use a relatively old version of Pinnacle 21 Enterprise, such as 3.4.x instead of 4.1.x. It may raise up a lot of false positive issue, within which some issues may be marked as an error. In this case, should we need to resolve them or just explain at the reviewer's guide? First of all, you should not use Enterprise 3.4 for PMDA submissions. It's not compliant. We highly recommend you to upgrade to new version 3.11 or 4.11 or 4.12. Until then, as a temporary solution, you can use Community 2.13 for PMDA Validation Rules, 1.0 or Community 3.12. Okay, next question. CDISC has released PGX SDTM IG provisional version 1.0. If submission includes PG data, what is your recommendation? Okay, so recently we have many similar questions on our forum. I will read my response on the forum. Okay, so officially there is no CDISC standard for pharmacogenetics domain. CDISC PGX domains IG document was published in 2015 as provisional version. It means that this IG includes many new variables and special domains which are not supported by CDISC SDTM model. Intention was to include these new variables and domains in the next release of SDTM model. After that, CDISC PG IG would be promoted to official CDISC standard. Until that, provisional version is still a draft version with many expected changes. So I heard that CDISC team was going to add new PG pharmacogenetics variables in the SDTM model, but then pull them back because it was decided that they are not well defined. So formally, to be CDISC compliant, and if you want to use new PGX variables, you should add them in as subqual variables. And also know that there is no CDISC compliant solution for use of rel spec dataset. However, I do not think that it's a good implementation in terms of data usability. So my advice is to contact FDA data team and ask them, as well as a reviewer assigned to your application, what their choice. Next question. Can you use CDISC CT files instead of CT files provided in Pinnacle website for community version? Will there be any difference? No, you cannot use CDISC CT files. there is some difference in format and additional information needed for validation. Next question, are there any HA, CFDA coming up with their own rules as planned to move toward CDISC data submission? We're not aware about any plans of Chinese regulatory agency. Submission study data in CDISC format is still optional. I will keep the industry posted if any changes. And here's the last question. Why is PMDA validation report may not be equal or consistent to one created by pharma CRO? There could be many reasons. Here's a simple example. You validated your data with MedDRA 17, and then another your team member created Define.xml file with incorrect MedDRA version 18. When validating at PMDA, incorrect version of MedDRA from your Define.xml file will be utilized, producing different results. Other examples are issues with community configurations like deployment on unsupported operating system, use of different system encoding, or use of custom terminology files. So you can mitigate many of these problems by using Enterprise, which is managed by Pinnacle 21 team, who will ensure that your validation system is properly configured. Okay, and this was the last question today. Please inform your Japanese colleagues about this webinar. Will be presented in 1 week by Chikaki-san for our Japanese users. Also, watch for our notification about slides, recording, and Q&A of this webinar posted on our blog soon. Thank you for your attention. Have a good day.